We begin in the UK, where Prime Minister Boris Johnson is now in intensive care at a central London hospital after his coronavirus symptoms got worse. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has been asked to deputise where necessary. World leaders, including US President Donald Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron, have been expressing their support for the British leader. Let's cross now to Lorna Shaddick in London, who's in front of St Thomas Hospital, where the Prime Minister is currently being treated. Lorna, just give us the latest in regards to his condition.
Well, and very little new really since last night when Downing Street made that really quite shocking announcement that the Prime Minister's condition had worsened since he went into hospital on Sunday night and he had been moved as a precaution to the intensive care unit. We were told then that he was conscious and is conscious, and indeed the Cabinet Office Minister and a member of the Cabinet, Michael Gove, said earlier this morning that the Prime Minister is not on a ventilator. But interestingly, some news that we've just had in, Michael Gove himself is now in self-isolation because a member of his family has been displaying symptoms of COVID-19. So yet another member of the British Cabinet seemingly affected by this disease, as indeed was the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, earlier on as well, and indeed the Chief Medical Officer, Sir Chris Whitty, earlier on as well. So it seems that this virus really has ripped its way through the higher echelons of the British government. But in the meantime, we know that the Prime Minister is still in hospital after being taken there on Sunday evening with persistent symptoms. And clearly things have really deteriorated over the course of yesterday. And it must have been enough of a concern for his doctors that so they decided that he needed to be kept in the intensive care unit to keep an eye on him, and indeed we're told that he was receiving oxygen as well before being moved to the intensive care unit. And indeed Boris Johnson did appear on social media while he was in self-isolation in number 10 over the last 10 days or so, and it was clear that he was looking somewhat under the weather during that period. But as you say, lots and lots of well wishes from leaders across the world, and indeed from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who has said that St Thomas's, the hospital in which the Prime Minister is being treated, has some of the finest medical staff in the world, and the Prime Minister could not be in better hands.
And how is the government being run in his absence, Lorna?
Well, you may well ask it because it is somewhat unclear, although we are told that the Prime Minister has asked the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, to deputise where necessary, and we're told that Dominic Raab will be chairing the government's daily COVID-19 meeting today, as indeed he did yesterday. It's still not clear exactly what that deputising involves, and indeed some members of Parliament have been asking for some clarification. The chair of the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Ellwood, has asked for details as to who is responsible for the UK's national security at the moment, and when asked about that earlier today, Michael Gove said that he couldn't discuss national security details, but nonetheless it's something that clearly needs to be set out for those who need to know. And in the meantime, we learned yesterday that the Prime Minister hadn't actually spoken to Dominic Raab since Saturday, and now Dominic Raab is effectively in charge, at least in terms of leading the Cabinet and being the chief decision maker. But this is unprecedented here in the UK. We've never had a Prime Minister taken to intensive care at a moment of national crisis. And indeed, having an unwritten constitution means that the procedures in this kind of scenario are somewhat murky. But the Prime Minister is the most senior decision maker. The buck does stop with him. So it's very unsettling for the country to have someone who is so in charge of the health of the nation fighting this virus on such a personal front and battling it in the same way that the country itself is battling it at the moment.
Lorna Shaddick reporting there from London. Thank you.